Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I have an exceptional human being on the show today. Somebody that Mark Victor Hansen introduced us, and he's been friends with Mark for many, many years. And this guy, I've had phone conversations with this gentleman, and my mind was just blown, and I think yours will be too. So I'd like to welcome my new friend, Dr. Gilles LaMarche, to the show. Dr. Gilles, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Ken. It's an honor and a pleasure to spend this time with you and to share, hopefully, a message of hope with your audience.
That's the goal, right? So, look, I told you I started this show a couple of years ago, and I've had some amazing people like Mark and his wife Crystal have been on the show, and a lot of other amazing people. After talking with you the other day, I was like, this guy is legit. So I'm excited to hear your story. I don't know the whole story. So why don't we start with, telling everybody where you were born and raised?
So I'm Canadian. I currently live in Atlanta, but I was born and raised in a little town in northern Ontario called Timmins. You may have heard of the name of that city either because you're in the mining business or in the lumber business. So gold is strong up there, and so is lumber. But you might also have heard of it because that's where the famous Shania Twain is from. So she is one of my compatriots in this little town called Timmins, Ontario.
Do you know her?
I do know her.
You know Shania?
I do know Shania.
I love Shania Twain. Love, love, love her. So and actually a friend of mine used to play violin with her, and I don't know if he still does or not, but Roddy Chong has toured with her many times. So.
She's a phenomenal human being.
She is
a phenomenal person.
Yeah. So are you still considered Canadian then, or have you?
I'm still Canadian. I live in the United States on a green card.
Okay.
And I'm a permanent resident. As I told you when we were speaking before, I'm a vice president at Life University in Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah.
A little town north of Atlanta, about a few miles north of Atlanta, but based in part of the Atlanta Metroplex. And I actually moved to the United States in 2006. I first lived in Dallas for a few years.
Wow. Okay. So so you grew up in snow.
I certainly did.
A lot of snow. And what did you, what was it like growing up in Canada?
Well, when you don't know anything else, it was great. It's very cold there. It's not as much snow as it is cold, by the way, because when it's minus 35 or minus 40, it doesn't snow. Everything is frozen. So yeah. I got used to it. I lived there most of my life. As you know, I was a practicing chiropractor, and I practiced in Northern Ontario for 25 years before I came to the U.S. in 2006. So that was the norm for me. And when I had retired in 2004, and when I initially came to the U.S., it was because I'd been invited to go help someone rebuild a seminar division for their institution. And I thought, and that was in Dallas, and I thought, oh my gosh, I could never live in that heat, is what I thought.
Yeah.
But the human body has this wonderful ability to adapt. And believe me, I adapted really, really quickly. And I don't really want to live in cold weather anymore, but I love living in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Life is good.
You're like, okay, maybe I can deal with this heat.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you ended up in Atlanta, and I was telling you over the phone, I used to live in Atlanta. I had a business right down the street from where you're the vice president of Life. It's what's it? Life
University. That's correct.
It's a chiropractic college.
Well, the way I usually tell the story, it says from its humble beginnings in 1974 as Life Chiropractic College, offering 1-degree program in a third of a rented industrial building on Berkeley Circle, Life University has grown to occupy 110 pristine acres, now offering 21-degree programs. We have hundreds of thousands of square feet of classroom, lab, residence, office spaces. We've got 20 intercollegiate sports teams. We are the top university in the world of rugby nationwide.
Wow.
Very, very robust. both male and female rugby program. And as a matter of fact, the new Atlanta professional rugby team actually plays on our pitch. So we've got a beautiful stadium here on Life University's campus. So yes, it started as a chiropractic college in 1974, has grown to a full-fledged university since. And yes, the chiropractic program is still our flagship program, but we have programs such as, sports health science and nutrition, positive psychology, business, a number of other majors, but 21 degree programs currently.
Wow, that's incredible. So how did you end up there? I mean, so you were practicing chiropractor in Canada, and all of my Canadian friends, I always say A at the end, but
you won't hear me say that. I've corrected that from my vocabulary.
Oh, really?
I have.
I love it. I have some really good friends and clients that are in Canada, and literally every time I talk to them, I do that. And they just laugh at me like, you're an idiot. So,
I think my story of hope is really there. So I can take you through that if you'd like to hear that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
So the first time I went to a chiropractor, I was 12 years old. I'd had a teacher, as a joke, in an all-boys school, had a teacher pull the chair from underneath me. And, I landed on my bottom and I injured my back. And 6 months after going the traditional route and nothing getting better, someone said to my mom, why don't you take him to a chiropractor? And my mother said, what's a chiropractor? Nobody in my family had ever been. Anyway, the long and the short, I ended up in the chiropractor's office, went through a consultation examination. He discovered I had, something actually happening with the low part of my spine that was likely the cause of my low back pain and the pain into my legs. But he also discovered other issues with my spine a little bit higher up. And he referred to a new word I'd never heard that back then, was a subluxation, meaning sort of a minor misalignment of the spine that can actually affect neurological function. And I'd not been a sick child. I would say I was an unwell child. I always had pain in my belly. I always had issues with digestion and constipation. And he related what was happening with my spine to a nervous system chart and showed how the energy from the brain goes down the spinal cord, exit the spine at different levels, and brings the energy to the different organs for them to function.
Right.
Thought, okay, that was something new for me. I'd never heard that before. And I remember him saying to my mom, did he ever fall off like a change table or fall off and land on his head somewhere? And I remember my mother tearing up a little bit, and then she described the birth process. I was a forceps delivery baby. So even when I did have hair, because once in my life I did have a lot of hair,
right?
I never had any right here, because there's a huge patch where the hair didn't grow, because through the forceps delivery they had ripped the side of
Oh my God.
Oh, but the good news is that they saved me and they saved my mom, obviously. So the medical procedure was necessary, but unbeknownst to anyone, there had been an injury to my spine.
Wow.
So I didn't have pain in my neck or pain in my back, but it was actually affecting my digestion system, my digestive system. So anyway, this doctor started explaining what he was going to do. And I was like, okay, it's not going to work anyway, because everybody told me it's in my head, that there's nothing wrong with me, but hopefully he's going to be able to help me with my back pain. And within a matter of a number of weeks, not only was my back pain completely gone, but so was my indigestion.
Oh, wow.
I started having just totally normal physiological function. I was like, wow. And I remember I was 12 years old and I said to him, when I'm big, I'm going to be like you. So off I went, finished high school. I went to my undergrad at the University of Toronto, went to chiropractic school, finished chiropractic school, and then went back to Northern Ontario, and I practiced for 25 years.
Wow.
In the spring of 2000, I was a runner most of my life. I ran, competitively through high school and college at the university, and I was good. I mean, I was a good runner, and I won a lot of gold medals, and I was having a lot of fun. And all of a sudden in 2000, because I love to run in nature, I started having trouble breathing when I was running. And I thought, I'm in my 40s. I don't know. Maybe I'm allergic to something in nature. So I basically just stopped running.
Wow.
And, it was a lifelong passion. I was like, I'm just going to stop. And I stopped.
Now, I have a question though. Hold on. So you were a practicing chiropractor at this point.
Yes, sir. I started practicing in 1979. And as I finish the story, you'll see where the magic in the story really is there.
Okay.
And so these symptoms started in 2000. In 2003, the symptoms came back, but now they were affecting me no matter what I was doing. So while I was in my practice seeing patients, I was having trouble breathing. I am allergic to cat hair. So I had this sense there was always a cat around me. There was this pain and this discomfort in my chest. And I was like, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm allergic to. But one day, one of my assistants, being much smarter than I, as I usually say, she pulls me aside and she said, I'm so afraid you're going to die in front of me. And she's tearing up. I was like, what are you talking about? She said, listen to yourself breathing. You sound terrible. And she said, I don't want to be disrespectful, Doc, but you look terrible. You've aged like 10 years in the past 6 months. There's got to be something seriously wrong with you. And I said, no, don't worry. I'm trying to figure it out. I must be allergic to some of the food I'm eating. And I'd done what's called an elimination diet. I basically fasted for 5 days, and I was starting to reintroduce foods to try to figure out if there was a trigger. I had my house cleaned by an eco-friendly cleaning company. Even though it was a clean house, they came in, they cleaned every nook and cranny, and nothing changed. We had an indoor swimming pool. I had them drain it in case maybe the chemicals. I had them clean all the piping. Nothing changed. So anyway, she calls a friend of mine who's a physician, my good buddy, my best buddy, and she convinces him to get me to his office. So he calls me that night. He said, hey, Gilles, if I had made a promise to someone, you were the only person who could help me fulfill my promise, would you do whatever it takes to help me? I said, of course I would. That's what friends do. He said, great. I'll see you in my office tomorrow at 4:00. And he just hung up the phone. You know, it's the day when the phone was on the wall. So he went click. So I ended up in his office the next day. And this is a long story. We're going to make it in a minute. But I got diagnosed with a terminal condition, which means you're going to die, called primary pulmonary hypertension. So you can Google it. The average prognosis, post-diagnosis, is about 24 months. Most people that get diagnosed with this condition are dead within 2 years.
Oh my
God. I can tell you, I was getting worse by the week. I saw a number of doctors, a number of cardiologists, you know, from the local guy to the regional to then the big guru from the University of Toronto. And they all told me the same thing. If you want to live, you need to agree to a double lung and heart transplant.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. So I was like, what? So I didn't know much about transplant recipients. So I did a lot of research, obviously, on the condition itself, also on transplant recipients, discovered that, yes, I probably had 2 months or less to live, 2 years or less to live. If I had a transplant, pretty traumatic. I potentially would get 5 years of existence, not real living.
Wow.
And I've always lived pretty much full out. Like I'd love to jump out of planes and race snowmobiles and fast cars, all kinds of stuff. I said, if I can't really have fun, like what's the point of continuing to live? If this is God's calling for my life, I've had a beautiful life and I'm going to allow myself to transition. And I came to that decision and I shared, I was a single dad at the time. I had 3 kids. They were in college. I shared this with them and they were all super supportive, basically said, whatever you decide is how we're going to support you. And so I retired from practice on the 14th of April in 2004.
Wow.
Between that spring of 2003 to 2004, I started looking for someone to take over my practice. I had a large practice. I had patients that I loved. It was my baby. I enjoyed my life as a chiropractor so much and found someone to take it over. But in between, I basically succumbed to the half-hourly use of Ventolin, which, you know, a vasodilator to allow me to breathe long enough to take care of the next group of people. So while I was in my office, pretty much every 30 minutes, I'd go into the back room, I'd pump a little Ventolin into my chest, and I'd go back and I'd take care of the next 5, 6 people, and I'd go back again, and I did that, you know, all day long as I took care of people.
And this is all during, like, this is after the prognosis of you're gonna die in the next. Whoa.
I retired on the 14th of April in 2004. I was 49 years old, and I went home to prepare myself to transition.
Oh my God.
I didn't go through anger. I didn't go through any negative emotions. I was totally connected to spirit and said, hey, if this is the calling for my life, I'm good. I've had a great life. And I did what people do when they know they're going to die. You know, you make sure that everything is in order and you plan your funeral. I picked the songs I would want people to sing at my funeral. I wanted them to have a big party to celebrate because I'd had a really, really good life and fantastic kids, etc. And On the 15th of May, 31 days later, I woke up, because this is where the magic is for me, and this is where the hope for your listeners is. I woke up, and I won't tell you the exact words that came into my head because they should not be repeated publicly, but they were like, beep, 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 you're an idiot. You've been preaching the chiropractic paradigm of health and healing for all these years. There's got to be something seriously wrong with your spine and nervous system. And then the second thought was, well, how could there be? I go to a chiropractor every week or two to get checked, just because I want my spine and nervous system to function well. And it's the third thought that really woke me up, Ken. It was, but never the same chiropractor. So I would have lunch with a buddy. I'd go to his office, or he'd come to my office. I'd check him, he'd check me. But I had not been under regular care by one person who could truly understand the health or lack thereof of my spine and nervous system. So when all the noise died down, I was still in bed. I reached over and I called my former office manager. I made an appointment as a new patient. I went in, I did everything that we would expect people to do. I filled out the paperwork, had a thorough consultation, thorough examination, had a set of x-rays of my spine done, had a neural scan done, things I hadn't done in probably 20 years. And when all of that, we looked at all that, my spine looked pretty decent, except it was a mess from what we call C7, which is sort of, if you run your hand down the back of your neck, the bump that you'll get to when you get to about your shoulder level is called C7. It's a 7th cervical vertebrae. My spine was a mess from C7 to 4 segments below that, C7 to T4. Yeah. And the nerves that actually govern the function of the heart and lungs exit your spine from T1 to T4.
Wow.
So I started getting that corrected. I started getting my spine adjusted, getting my subluxations corrected. And by the end of August, my pulmonary pressure had improved by more than 50%. So the normal is 15. It had been measured at 57.
Wow.
By the end of August, it was at 27.
Wow.
What I will tell you is that in response to that, my heart had grown 2.5 times its normal size. So I also had a condition called cardiomegaly, just an increased heart.
Yeah.
The body's way to adapt when it wasn't able to get enough blood pumped into my lungs because of the back pressure from my lungs, it started expanding like any muscle. If it needs to get stronger, it gets bigger.
Right.
So like I said, by the end of August of 2004, my pulmonary pressure had improved from 57 to 27. Within 1 year, my pulmonary pressure was normal at 15. Within 2 years, my cardiomegaly was non-existent. So this year, like I did last year, the year before, there's a Kennesaw series of 5K races here. I'm now 65 years old. I'm healthier at 65 than I was at 49. I will be running as soon as COVID-19 is over. I will be running all the 5K races that are in my community. And, you know, I don't go out there to win, but I typically rank in the first to fourth or fifth in my age group. And
wow.
I'm like 100% healthy. And a scientist would look at that, like the cardiologist that I was conversing with, obviously back in 2004, and say, well, it's a miracle. Like God healed you. It had nothing to do with chiropractic. I would go, well, I think you can believe that. And I believe in God. And I believe that miracles happen every day.
Yes.
But the only thing that I changed in my life, starting on the 15th of May in 2004, is I started getting checked and adjusted 5 days a week. And within 3 months, I was 50% better. And within a year, I was pretty much completely recovered as it relates to the levels of my pulmonary pressure. And he was like, yeah. And then, so I sat with him for a number of hours and had the conversation. He was like, Gilles, it might be that. You might be right. But there's no science. There's no science to prove it. So if a scientist is listening in today or whenever this is posted or in the future, they may say, well, where's the science behind it? Well, for me, it's not anecdotal because I went from being given a death sentence to all of a sudden being completely well.
Wow.
So,
wow.
That's what I believe. And I've sent a lot of people. I've even had physicians that work in Timmins, call me and say, hey, Gilles, I know you had pulmonary. What did you do? And I've referred them to other chiropractors, and those people got well too. So I know what we have lacking is more, double-blind, randomized controlled trials. We need more science. But there are people who get well under chiropractic care when other methods have failed. And so my work here obviously has taken me deep into chiropractic.
Yep.
Because I'm in the institution. I'm in the largest single campus chiropractic program in the world.
Yep.
That's what attracted me here, obviously. And I continue to teach. I don't teach, but I continue to share the message of hope with people. That's what's important. Because there is hope, there's an ability. So we know the more nervous system research is being done, the more we're finding out. There's great research being done in New Zealand with other neuroscientists. A friend of mine, Dr. Heidi Havoc, is a chiropractor and a PhD in neuroscience at Life University. Our director of research is a chiropractor, and she also has a PhD in neuroscience. They are working with people now all over the world that aren't chiropractors involved in neuroscience, and they're going, wow, we had no idea. And so what they're discovering now is how impactful a chiropractic adjustment is also on brain function, on executive function, the fact that it actually triggers increased activity in the frontal lobe.
You know, I gotta, and just a little sidebar thing here. I worked at the Honda factory here in Ohio right out of high school, pretty much. And I ended up, I don't know what it's called, slipping, rupturing, I don't know, discs and in my lower back, and then a few in that T1 to 4 area, had some serious issues. And of course they gave me time off and all of that. And I ended up going to whatever the surgeon is that operates on backs. I don't know.
A neurosurgeon or an orthopedic surgeon, depending on
or maybe orthopedics. I don't know. So I go to the surgeon, and this was my first experience going to a surgeon, but he's like, yeah, we need to operate and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm like, I was only 21 or 22 years old. And I'm like, dude, something told me like, no way. And my sister's husband's best friend is a chiropractor. So I went and saw him, and I saw him for about a month, and literally it fixed every problem that I had. Right. And then later I ended up, what was it, at L4, L5? I literally, there was nothing left, no gel. I had my sciatic nerve pinned against my spine. I don't know if anybody's ever been stabbed or shot, but like, I think that would be a more pleasant experience than having the sciatic nerve compressed.
Very painful. Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst. My wife never has, she doesn't swear, but I literally, because I'm a recovered alcoholic, so I'm like, I'm not taking any pain pills. I'm going to meditate my way through this. Oh, dear God. And so finally she comes in and said a few words after 21 hours of screaming in pain. She's like, you're going to the ER, or I'm having the blanking cops come and get you and remove you from this house. And so I ended up, though, going to a chiropractor again, and like, I walked out of her office a completely new human being. I completely support and love chiropractic care.
It works. I mean, at the end of the day, it works. Period.
It does. Period. I agree, man. So anybody that says that chiropractors are quacks, I'll block you. If we're friends, I will literally block you.
Well, I'm gonna, you know me, I'm gonna love them anyway. And
I'm not.
Do my best to offer them an option. And that's what I used to do in my community. I used to say, look, this is an option for you. Look at what's going on, and let me tell you whether or not I think it will help. And, you know, it works. And it depends on time. Sometimes people want, you know, an immediate response. Well, if you've got a degenerated disc, dude, you're not going to get well in a week. You know, it'll take time for your body. So I'm under regular chiropractic care still to this day. I go to my chiropractor every single 2 weeks. Wow. I have no pain in my back. I have no pain in my neck. I don't go for that reason. I go to maintain a healthy spinal function, to maintain a good neurological function. And I think at 65, people are thinking of retiring. I'm in my prime. I'm going to do more good for humanity in the next 15 to 20 years of my life than I've done in the first 65. And I'm sure of that because I'm at that level. Often people see, you know, I'm, you know, pretty fit. They say, man, you look great for 65. I said, no, hang on a second. This is what 65 is supposed to look like. The other ones look old for 65 because people aren't taking care of themselves.
Dude, it's unbelievable that you're 65. I mean, it truly is unbelievable. You do not look 65.
I get that all the time. I mean, even if I'm hanging out with, with my kids, or it doesn't matter where I go, it's very rare that they think that I'm their father.
Yeah. Somebody just said, can you treat someone with dish? I don't know what dish is.
So I would never make a statement of any type. Get in chiropractor, Weldon, make an exam.
Uh-oh. What happened? Still see me? Please, who can see me? I don't know. Facebook's been acting weird. It's been acting very strange. I think it's because of it's been unbelievable. I don't know what happened. It comes back on here short. Wow. So viewing, I think he may have his battery pooped out. But he's yeah, great. Let me get on a call with Dr. Gilles, and we may have to reschedule. Sorry, but we don't control Facebook. Yeah, Robert Brooker just said live. I was also in a Zoom webinar that was used because I was on a Zoom the other day and it was having all sorts of issues. So anyway, we will